Have you ever found yourself in a situation where something starts to change and you feel a resistance coming up? And you notice that you don't want things to change from where they are right now. You don't actually want things to shift, but you're feeling that it's a little bit outside of your control, and that's starting to feel like you're giving your control away. My name's Krista Daneluz Vieira, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about change and about what happens inside of us when we start to see those shifts happening in our lives that we don't necessarily like, and also how we can navigate them with a little bit more ease and grace. So the first thing is to notice what it is that we're actually programmed for. So we know that the only constant is change. So it's actually kind of funny that one of the biggest things that we have trouble with is when things start to change from where they are right now, because change is inevitable. And because of this, being able to navigate change a little bit easier would really help us to navigate our lives with a little bit more grace and a little bit more flow. So it's really beneficial to know where it is that we're coming from. So we as human beings, we're programmed to avoid change, avoid discomfort, avoid growth. And we're programmed to actually expend minimum effort. Once we have kind of the basics covered, we try to stop putting out energy at that point. This isn't how most of us behave, but this is actually what we're programmed for in a deeper subconscious level, is that once we have things kind of at a good minimum, and our survival instincts have said you've got the food that you need, the water that you need, you're got everything kind of organized in your life, then it stops putting out this energy to shift things any further than that, because it's satiated, it's got what it needs and what it wants. We, on the other hand, from what we have driving us, what we have motivating us, from whatever spark is coming up in us, we might not be quite satisfied with that. We might be seeking out change. We might be seeking out growth opportunities, which kind of goes against our underlying programming. So you can see how we might start to bump up against ourselves in that way. And then also there's just the inevitable change that happens in life. So how can we navigate this a little bit easier? One of the biggest things is that we are trying to control sometimes the outside circumstance. When things start to change, sometimes we'll get in there and we'll try and shift it. We'll try and control it. We'll try to prevent that change from happening, which inevitably just leads us into suffering because it's outside of our control and there's nothing that we can do. So what we want to start to do is be able to notice, first of all, is this something that's within my area of influence? Is this something that I can control? What can I control? And if we were to trace that back, we would realize very quickly that the only thing we really have control over is how we respond to the circumstances that are coming up. And those responses or those reactions are going to create little domino effects that are going to interact with the world, interact with the environment, and set a trajectory going forward. So if you find yourself constantly trying to manipulate things on the outside of you to stay the same, and you're noticing that that isn't working, you might be coming from a reaction-based place. And when you're coming from that reaction-based place, what that's doing is it's constantly drawing up that 95% of you that's habitual. Most of what we do is habitual. It's automatic. We have patterns inside of us that come up again and again, and it's second nature. We have very well-worn neural pathways in our brain, and those get activated whenever new stimulus or old stimulus come up. Whenever something is happening, those patterns and ways of being get activated. So that is where our reactions start to come from. Something happens in the world, we react to it, and that creates a ripple. And that's where we start to see, you know what, I've been here before, I've done this before, I've lived this out before, I know what the outcome of this is going to be, and I don't like it, right? So what we can do to change that is I invite you to bring in a pause. So when something happens in the world, you might notice that you have a reaction, you have an initial response, and it doesn't necessarily feel authentic, but it is happening. There's an emotion, there's a thought, you don't like it, it doesn't feel safe, it doesn't feel good, whatever it might be. And if you take a moment and pause and just really give yourself a second to process what's happening, within a very short period of time, the spectrum that before said, well, this is the only way forward, this is the reaction I'm going to give, that spectrum is going to start to expand. And what you'll see is that you have a range of options. And this really helps to calm the nervous system. It really helps to relax you, because when you realize that you're not trapped into only one way forward, and usually it's a defensive or a protection response or reaction that comes up, you're able to come over and respond from a very different place. So you start to see, because of this pause that you're implementing, because you're taking a moment to really let it land in you, you're starting to see from multiple perspectives, different possibilities, how what initially might have appeared to be bad or uncomfortable, how now they're starting to grow a little bit of familiarity, maybe a little bit more comfort, a little bit more flexibility. Now you're starting to see, okay, well, where am I reacting in my life? And when am I offering up a response to the things that are happening into the universe? When am I offering up a response that's really coming from within, not just from my pre-programming, not just from the experiences I've had before, but right in this moment, in this real time, what is the response that I want to be coming up with? And this combination of having a pause so that we're not reacting and then starting to draw up an authentic response that's true in this moment, this is a combination for success, because it means that we're not going to play out the old patterns. It also means that we're not afraid of change anymore. We're starting to become more open to things shifting and realizing that we have some power within that. We have some ability to navigate that from a graceful, authentic place that isn't dependent upon things staying the same. And this is going to open up the potential to grow. When we start to open up to this, change starts to become less of a trigger, less of a scary thing, and it starts to evoke this evolutionary wisdom within us. What am I capable of? What is possible for me? And the more comfortable that we become with change, the more comfortable we become with life itself. Because as we said at the beginning, life is change. Change is the one constant that we can be absolutely certain of. So if you find yourself right now in your life facing a moment where you're seeing some changes are coming, or you're experiencing a big change in your life and you're feeling that inner resistance, I invite you to implement this pause and then start to notice, when am I reacting and when am I responding? What this is going to do is it's going to give you power over your state. And this is one of the most powerful things that you have. Your state of mind is more powerful than any other asset that you have within your inner toolkit, your inner landscape. So the state of your mind is going to dictate how you experience your life. And if you're constantly resisting the things that are happening, coming from a reactionary or protective place where you don't feel comfortable with how things are going, you don't want things to go the way that they're going, that creates a state that's being really strongly affected by what's going on around you, right? But as you start to bring yourself more to the inside and you start to bring your response up from within, you start to recognize, some things are outside of my control, but my response is always inside of my control. My response is mine. My state of mind is mine to maintain, and I'm balanced, I'm calm, I'm relaxed, and I'm able to stay in my center no matter what's going on around me. This becomes your superpower. So I hope that this was helpful for you today. Just allowing yourself to really own your state, allowing yourself to have some tools to start to navigate some of the uncomfortable changes that might come up, or simply that impetus to grow, which naturally happens to all of us at some point in life. Change does not have to be a scary thing. It can become something that we start to navigate with ease, grace, and a certain sense of calmness. So hope that this was helpful for you today. Wishing you a beautiful day.